A lot of people opposed to immigration in the United States argue that immigrants are taking American jobs, that they're lowering American wages.
Immigration. We're either a country or we're not. We either have borders or we don't. We either have borders or we don't. You better be smart and you better be tough, and they're taking your jobs, and you better be careful.
Immigrants taking American jobs is perhaps the most basic concern.
There's really two portions to this argument, I think. One is that the labor market is relatively fixed. That is, there really aren't too many new jobs created on net, so therefore more immigrants coming in and maybe working those jobs denies native-born Americans the opportunities to work them, pushes natives into unemployment. The second argument is that immigrants come in, this increases the supply of workers, and as a result, the wages go down, and thus makes Americans worse off.
We're basically, in this debate, talking about large-scale undocumented immigrants.
The presumption there is that they're taking away a job that I really want to do, and that immigrant, whether Salvadorian, Mexican, Haitian, is coming here to do.
They actually do the low skill level, as I will call it, a lot of farming, a lot of agriculture work, construction work, service work, housekeeping, maintenance jobs.
Those are jobs that have been done by immigrants throughout our history. Italian immigrants built the skyscrapers and the subway tunnels of New York. Chinese immigrants and Irish immigrants built the railroads. We have an agricultural industry because of immigrants. Without that, we would be dependent upon importing all of our food stuff, and that would be a national security issue.
We know of fields that have been raided by ICE, and all the workers have been picked off. You would expect U.S. citizens and permanent residents to line up and say, these are the jobs we couldn't get. We're actually waiting for those jobs to vacate so that we could actually get them. There isn't a line out there of American citizens willing to do that kind of backbreaking work. Walk around in that field, bent over all day under the sun for $7, $8 an hour. No one is lining up.
So on the displacement argument, which is the argument that immigrants are taking jobs specifically from natives and pushing them into unemployment, there's almost no academic research that finds that that is the case. What we do find is that by having more immigrants in the US, it increases the supply side of the economy, which means there's more people working, making things, but it also increases the demand side, which means there's more people buying things, which also increases demand for the production and products made by workers, which increases salaries and jobs. That money goes to employ Americans. So if you take out that consumer, then you're destroying job opportunities elsewhere, even though you might free up, that person's specific exact job for an American.
If you think about the fact that the economy of a country grows only on the basis of its population growth and on the basis of its productivity growth, then immigrants add population, and therefore they add economic activity, and therefore they add economic growth. That has to also be considered in light of the fact that the United States population itself is aging very rapidly. If you segment the population of the country, you realize very quickly that the population is well under replacement level.
Without immigration, at our current fertility rate, we would be in an aging and declining population situation, and we're already seeing that in certain other parts of the world.
We have instances in Europe of countries that are dying out, from Italy to Austria to Germany itself, that is trying to attract migrants because they realize that a vibrant, young, productive population is important.
Japan, which is a notoriously closed society to immigration, is finally opening up because they are literally dying and getting so old that they cannot fill the jobs they have. Even China, because of its one-child policy, is now facing a population that is increasingly old with too few new workers coming in. Russia is in a similar situation. So it's really our history of immigration that has prevented us from being in some similar situations. We have a lot of dependencies on our workforce. Our Social Security systems, our Medicare systems are pay as you go, not you get what you paid. So everybody who's working now is paying for everybody who's getting benefits now. And if there's not enough people working when I retire, then I'm not likely to get any benefits. For that reason alone, we need to keep having a growing workforce to support a growing retirement community.
This is a point that is often missed in the immigration debate. Immigrants, even if they're lower skilled, are contributing to the economy and are having children, are adding to the growth of the overall economy.
Now, in terms of the wage effect on this, one study by George Borjas of Harvard University does find negative effects on the wages of native-born Americans, but only on those who are high school dropouts. And it shows that their wages fell by about 1.7% relative to other workers over a 20-year period, while the wages of other Americans actually increased by about 1%. And that's the most negative finding in the entire academic peer-reviewed literature.
We do have American young people, but simply not in the numbers that are sufficient to meet the demand of U.S. industry. I mean, we need these workers today. We need American-born workers and foreign-born workers working together to create products, opportunities across the economy.
We have to really look at where these jobs are coming from, who is applying, and how we can encourage more U.S. citizens. And part of that has to do with looking at our K through 12 system. I think the solution will be not only to educate people, but to set up a system that's flexible enough to move with the needs of our country.
The American economy demands workers at every single skill level. And the US government is just not very good at selecting how many immigrants from each skill level should be allowed into the United States at any given time. And there really is no way for the vast majority of these folks to immigrate legally to the United States to work currently.
The fact of the matter is Congress has punted this issue for so long that the ripple effects of them not having dealt with it are being felt at every layer of our government and every community across the country. If we continue to not deal with this fundamental issue of who are we as a country, who else do we want to invite to join us, how do we ensure that the majority are doing it legally, how do we deal with the fact that we have allowed, for good or ill, 11 million people to become Americans in every way but papers, and can we do without on a humane and rational level? The fact that the politics have allowed our politicians to get away with this for 3 decades is the problem. We need to hold them accountable and say, come up with something and pass it. But, to say we can't get the perfect, so we're not going to do anything is not the way to run a country.